The warning alarms filled the crystal war chamber with red light. High Admiral Zorath Ven stood frozen in front of the massive holographic display. His 4 eyes blinked rapidly as he tried to understand what he was seeing. This was impossible. This could not be happening. The Veilthori Galactic Empire had ruled 40,000 star systems for 12,000 years. They had conquered hundreds of species. They had built the greatest civilization the galaxy had ever known. Nothing surprised them anymore. Nothing scared them. Until now. "Report," Zorath Ven commanded. His voice was calm, but his hearts were beating fast inside his chest. The young officer at the sensor station was shaking. "Admiral, a vessel has crossed through the Shroud Wall Nebula. It emerged on the other side 3 hours ago and is now moving toward Imperial space." "That is impossible," the Admiral said flatly. "Nothing survives the Shroud Wall. The gravitational forces tear apart any ship that enters." "I know, Admiral, but the readings are clear. The vessel is real. It is intact, and it is heading directly toward us." Zorath Ven walked closer to the display. The ship appeared as a small dot against the purple clouds of the nebula. He enlarged the image and felt his blood turn cold. The vessel was massive. It was bigger than any Imperial dreadnought. Its design was strange and unfamiliar. The hull was completely black, smooth like polished stone. There were no visible weapons, no engine ports, no windows. It moved through space with impossible grace, changing direction in ways that should have killed everyone inside. "What species built this?" the Admiral asked. "Unknown, Admiral. The infinite calculation cannot identify the design or the technology. However," the officer paused and swallowed hard, "we have detected markings on the hull." "Show me." The image zoomed in further. On the side of the black vessel, painted in white, was a simple symbol. It showed a human hand reaching up to grasp a star. Zorath Ven felt something he had not felt in 100 years of war. He felt fear. "That cannot be correct," he whispered. "Humans are primitives. They barely have ships that can travel between their own planets. They cannot build something like this." "The markings are unmistakable, Admiral. This is a human vessel." The Admiral turned away from the display and pressed a button on his wrist communicator. Within moments, the holographic image of Emperor Malixar IV appeared before him. The Emperor was ancient and proud, with golden scales covering his face and a crown of living crystal on his head. "What is this disturbance, Admiral?" the Emperor demanded. "I was in the middle of important ceremonies." "Forgive me, Your Eternal Majesty. A situation has developed that requires your attention." Zorath Ven explained what they had detected. The Emperor listened without expression. When the Admiral finished, Malixar IV simply laughed. "A human warship? Admiral, your sensors are malfunctioning. Humans are insects. We surveyed their world 300 years ago. They were still burning dead plants for energy and fighting each other over patches of dirt. They are not capable of this." "With respect, Your Majesty, the readings are confirmed. The ship bears human markings." "Then it is a trick. Some other species using human symbols to confuse us. Send a scout fleet to investigate and destroy it. I want this matter resolved before my evening meal." The Emperor's image disappeared. Zorath Ven stood in silence for a long moment. He had served the Empire for his entire life. He had fought in dozens of wars and won them all. He knew the difference between a sensor error and a real threat. This was a real threat. He turned to his officers. "Prepare Scout Commander Fessa and her reconnaissance flotilla. 12 vessels, full weapon systems. They are to approach the unknown ship and determine its origin and capabilities." "And if it is hostile, Admiral?" "Then Commander Fessa will destroy it." The scout flotilla launched within the hour. 12 sleek warships raced across space toward the mysterious vessel. Commander Thessa stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching the black ship grow larger on her display. She was a veteran of 30 campaigns. She had faced enemies that breathed fire, and enemies that lived in the vacuum of space. She had never been afraid of anything. But something about this ship made her skin crawl. Distance to target, 10,000 kilometers, her navigator reported. The vessel has stopped moving. It appears to be waiting for us. All ships, raise shields and charge weapons, Thessa ordered. Prepare to transmit standard first contact greeting. The communication officer opened a channel and sent the greeting in all known languages. The message was simple. Identify yourself and state your purpose in Imperial space. For several minutes there was no response. The black ship simply floated in the darkness, silent and still. Then the communication console lit up with an incoming transmission. Commander, we are receiving a response. Audio only. Play it. A voice filled the bridge. It was speaking perfect Imperial Standard, the official language of the Veilthori Empire. But the voice was clearly human. It was calm and cold, without any emotion. Attention Veilthori vessels, we acknowledge your presence. We have traveled a great distance to reach your empire. We come with a simple purpose. What purpose is that? The voice continued as if she had not spoken. 300 years ago, your empire came to our world. You took our people. You stole our families. You made them slaves. You thought we would forget. You thought we would die. You were wrong. Thessa felt ice forming in her stomach. She did not understand what the human was talking about, but the hatred in the voice was unmistakable. We have spent 3 centuries preparing. We have built, we have grown, we have become something you cannot imagine. And now, we have returned. This is Commander Thessa of the Imperial Fleet, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. State your demands clearly, or be considered hostile. There was a pause. Then the human spoke again. We come to collect what is owed. The transmission ended. Thessa immediately opened a channel to Admiral Zorath Ven. Her hands were shaking as she sent the recording of the conversation. When she finished, she waited for a response. The Admiral's voice came through, heavy and troubled. Return to base immediately, Commander. Do not engage the vessel. I repeat, do not engage. Understood, Admiral. But what did that human mean? What did the Empire do 300 years ago? There was a long silence before the Admiral replied. That information is above your clearance level, Commander. Return to base. The Emperor must be informed. Thessa looked at the black ship one final time. It had not moved. It had not threatened them. But she knew with absolute certainty that everything was about to change. The humans had come, and they were not the primitives the Empire believed them to be. They were something else entirely. Something terrifying. Emperor Malixar IV had not visited the Forbidden Archive in all his 200 years of rule. The place existed beneath the Imperial Palace, buried deep underground where no light could reach. Only the Emperor and the Council of 12 knew it existed. Only the Emperor could open its doors. Tonight, Malixar descended alone. The elevator dropped for what felt like forever. When the doors finally opened, the Emperor stepped into a vast chamber filled with crystalline storage units. Each crystal contained the darkest secrets of the Empire. Wars that were erased from history, crimes that were never punished, decisions that would shame the Veilthori if anyone knew the truth. An ancient Veilthori waited for him in the shadows. The keeper of records was older than anyone alive. His scales had turned gray, and his eyes were clouded with age. He had served 6 emperors before Malixar. Your Majesty, the keeper said, bowing slowly, I knew you would come eventually. The humans have arrived, yes? Malixar grabbed the old man by his robes. You knew about this? You knew they would come? I suspected, Your Majesty. For 50 years I have suspected. Explain everything, now. The keeper led the emperor to a section of the archive that was covered in dust. No one had accessed these crystals in centuries. He pulled one from the shelf and activated it. Holographic images filled the air around them. 300 years ago, during the reign of your great-grandfather, Emperor Vexar III, the Empire discovered a small planet called Earth. It was located in a distant spiral arm of the galaxy, far from any important trade routes. The species living there, humans, had just begun to explore their own solar system. The images showed Earth as it was 3 centuries ago. Blue oceans, green lands, cities that seemed primitive compared to imperial standards. Billions of humans living their lives without any knowledge of the greater galaxy. The keeper continued. Emperor Vexar III saw an opportunity. The humans were strong and adaptable. They could survive in conditions that would kill other species. They reproduced quickly. They were perfect for labor. Malixar felt sick. He already knew what was coming. The Empire conducted what was called the Harvest. Over the course of 5 years, Imperial ships secretly visited Earth during the night. They took humans from isolated areas, farms, villages, remote cities. Using memory technology, they ensured that no trace of these visits remained. Any humans who saw the ships forgot everything. How many? The Emperor asked. 2.3 million humans were taken. The number hit Malixar like a physical blow. 2 million people stolen from their homes. 2 million families destroyed. What happened to them? They were transported to mining colonies in the outer territories. The work there was dangerous. The conditions were harsh. Many died. Those who survived were told they would never see their home again. Their children were born into slavery. Their grandchildren knew nothing but work and suffering. The keeper's voice became quiet. Imperial doctrine was changed to support this action. Scientists were ordered to declare that humans were biologically inferior, that they lacked the intelligence for anything but manual labor. These lies were taught in every school across the Empire. Malixar walked through the holographic images. He saw human faces, men, women, children, all of them looking confused and terrified as they were loaded onto Imperial transport ships. His bloodline carried this crime. The colonies continued to operate for 250 years, the keeper said. Then, 50 years ago, something strange happened. He activated another crystal. A star map appeared, showing 13 colonies in the outer territories. All contact with these colonies stopped on the same day. Investigation fleets were sent. They found the colonies completely empty. No bodies, no ships, no signs of battle. The humans had simply vanished. Where did they go? Into the Shroud Wall Nebula. Malixar stared at the old Veil Thori. That is suicide. Nothing survives the Shroud Wall. That is what we believed. The matter was classified as a mystery and forgotten. But I did not forget, Your Majesty. I continued to monitor the region, and over the decades, I detected signals coming from beyond the Shroud Wall. Faint, encrypted, but unmistakably artificial. Why did you not report this? The keeper looked at the Emperor with sad eyes. I did report it. Your father dismissed me as a senile fool. The military insisted nothing could survive in that region. Everyone wanted to forget what we had done to the humans, so they ignored the evidence. Malixar sat down heavily on a stone bench. His mind was racing. The humans had escaped. They had found a way through the Shroud Wall. And for 50 years, they had been building something on the other side. Building and waiting. They have been watching us, the Emperor said slowly, learning our weaknesses, preparing for this moment. Yes, Your Majesty, I believe they have. What do they want? The keeper shook his head. I cannot say for certain, but their message mentioned collecting what is owed. I think they want justice for what was done to their ancestors. Whether they want that justice through words or through war, only they know. A communication device on the Emperor's belt began to flash. He answered it, and heard the voice of Admiral Zorath Ven. "Your Majesty, we have received another transmission from the human vessel." "What does it say?" "They have sent coordinates for a meeting point in the hollow expanse. They demand that you personally attend to discuss terms. They say if you do not come to them, they will come to you." Malixar looked around the archive. Centuries of secrets surrounded him. Centuries of lies and cruelty and shame. "Admiral, what do your tactical analysts say about the human ship?" "They are confused, Your Majesty. The technology does not match anything in our records. The ship appears to manipulate gravity itself. Our scientists cannot explain how it crosses the shroud wall, or how it moves the way it does." "Can we defeat it in battle?" "I do not know, Your Majesty, and that uncertainty frightens me more than any enemy I have ever faced." The Emperor ended the communication. He stood in the darkness of the archive for a long time, thinking about choices and consequences. His ancestors had planted seeds of hatred 300 years ago. Now those seeds had grown into something powerful and angry. The humans had not forgotten. The humans had not forgiven. And soon, the entire empire would learn the truth about what the Vilethori had done. Malixar looked at the Keeper one final time. "Seal this archive. No one else enters." "What will you do, Your Majesty?" The Emperor did not answer. He walked to the elevator and began the long journey back to the surface. Above him, his advisors waited for orders. His people waited for reassurance. But Malixar IV had no reassurance to give. The ghosts of the past had returned, and they were wearing human faces. The hollow expanse was a region of empty space claimed by no empire. It was the traditional location for negotiations between great powers. For thousands of years, treaties had been signed here. Wars had been ended here. Today, Admiral Zorath Ven hoped it would not become a graveyard. He stood on the command deck of the Eternal Dominion, the greatest warship ever built by the Vilethori Empire. The vessel was 5 kilometers long and carried enough weapons to destroy a small planet. It had served the Empire for 2,000 years and had never lost a single battle. Behind the Eternal Dominion floated 400 more warships. Cruisers, destroyers, carriers filled with fighter craft. The pride of Calixis, the most powerful battle fleet in the galaxy, ready to show the humans the true might of the Empire. "Admiral, sensors are detecting a spatial distortion," an officer reported. "Something is coming." "All ships, raise shields and prepare weapons," Zorath Ven commanded. "But do not fire unless I give the order." Space itself seemed to tear open. A hole appeared in the fabric of reality, glowing with strange blue light. From this hole emerged the human ship. The Remembrance. Every officer on the bridge stopped breathing. The vessel was enormous. It made the Eternal Dominion look like a child's toy. The black hull stretched across space like a mountain floating in the void. Lights pulsed along its surface in patterns that seemed almost alive. "Size confirmed," the sensor officer whispered. "The human vessel is approximately 20 kilometers in length. It is 6 times larger than our flagship." Zorath Ven gripped the railing in front of him. His confidence was cracking like ice under pressure. But he was an admiral of the Empire. He would not show fear. "Open communication channels," he ordered. "Let us hear what these humans have to say." A holographic image appeared in the center of the bridge. It showed a human female in a simple black uniform. Her hair was gray, and her face was lined with age, but her eyes were sharp and cold. She carried herself like a warrior. "I am Admiral Sarah Chen of the Reclaimed Fleet," she said. "I am the great-granddaughter of humans who were stolen from Earth and forced into slavery. I am the supreme commander of those who survived and those who were born in chains." Zorath Ven stepped forward. "I am High Admiral Zorath Ven of the Vilethori Imperial Navy. I have come to discuss your presence in our space. There is nothing to discuss, Admiral. We have already transmitted our demands to your Emperor. Full disclosure of the harvest to all Imperial citizens, territory for human settlement, a formal apology broadcast across the galaxy. You have 30 standard days to comply. And if we do not comply, Admiral Chen smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Then we will take what we are owed by force. Zorath then felt anger rising in his chest. This human dared to threaten the Empire? This descendant of slaves thought she could dictate terms to the greatest civilization in the galaxy? You have one ship, he said. I have 400. Your threats are empty. Are they? The Empire does not bow to terrorists. If you do not leave our space immediately, we will destroy you. Admiral Chen tilted her head slightly. I understand. You need to see before you believe. Very well, Admiral. Show me the power of your empire. Attack my ship with everything you have. Zorath then hesitated. Something about her confidence disturbed him. She was too calm, too certain. But the pride of the Empire was at stake. His Emperor was waiting for news of victory. You will regret those words, human. He turned to his weapons officer. Signal the fleet. Concentrated fire from 200 ships. Target the center of the human vessel. Admiral, are you certain? We do not know what. I gave an order. Execute it. 200 Imperial warships opened fire simultaneously. Plasma beams, nuclear missiles, graviton torpedoes, a wall of destruction racing toward the Remembrance. Enough firepower to crack a moon in half. The weapons struck the black hull, and nothing happened. The energy simply disappeared. The missiles vanished. The torpedoes dissolved into nothing. The human ship absorbed everything like water soaking into sand. Zorath then watched in horror. That is impossible. No shield technology can absorb that much energy. Admiral Chen appeared on the hologram again. You misunderstand, Admiral. That was not a shield. Our hull is made of matter that exists partially outside normal space. Your weapons cannot touch it because it is not entirely here. She paused. Now it is our turn. The Remembrance began to glow. A single point of light appeared on its bow, growing brighter and brighter until it hurt to look at. All ships, evasive action! Zorath then screamed. Too late. A beam of pure white light shot from the human ship. It moved faster than anything Zorath then had ever seen. The light struck the Eternal Dominion directly in the center. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the greatest warship in the Empire split in half. The beam had cut through 5 kilometers of armor and metal, like a knife through paper. 40,000 Veilthori crew members died in an instant. The two halves of the ship drifted apart, explosions rippling along the broken edges. The entire Imperial fleet went silent. Officers stared at their screens in disbelief. Some began to cry. Others simply could not process what they had seen. The Eternal Dominion, undefeated for 2,000 years, destroyed by a single shot. Admiral Chen's voice filled the communication channels. This was a demonstration, not an attack. We could destroy your entire fleet in minutes, but that is not why we came. Zorath then could not speak. His mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. We came for justice, Chen continued. Your ancestors stole our people. Your empire built its wealth on human suffering. We want acknowledgement. We want reparations. We want the truth to be told. She paused, and her voice became harder. You have 29 days remaining. We will not demonstrate again. If your emperor does not meet our demands, we will not ask politely. We will take what is owed. And we will start with this fleet. The holographic image disappeared. The Remembrance turned slowly and moved away from the battlefield. It left behind the burning wreckage of the Eternal Dominion and a fleet of warships that no longer believed they could win. Zorath then finally found his voice. Send a message to the Emperor. Tell him, he swallowed hard. Tell him we cannot defeat them. Tell him we need another solution." The communication officer looked at him with fear in his eyes. "What other solution is there, Admiral?" Zorath Ven looked at the debris floating past his windows. Pieces of the ship he had served on for 50 years. Bodies of friends and colleagues drifting in the cold darkness. "I do not know," he admitted. "But if we try to fight, we will all die. Every ship, every colony, every world." He sat down heavily in his command chair. "The humans have become something we cannot understand. Something we cannot defeat." He stared at the distant shape of the remembrance as it grew smaller and smaller. May the ancestors forgive us for what we did to them. But he knew forgiveness would not come easily, if it came at all. The news spread across the empire like fire through dry grass. The Eternal Dominion had been destroyed. The greatest warship in history had been cut in half by a single shot from a human vessel. 40,000 Veilthuri had died in seconds. On 1,000 worlds, citizens gathered around broadcast screens and whispered to each other in fear. How was this possible? Humans were supposed to be primitives. Humans were supposed to be weak and stupid. Every school taught this. Every scientist confirmed it. But the recordings from the battle told a different story. In the Imperial Palace, Emperor Malixar IV sat alone in his private chambers. The holographic display in front of him showed the moment of destruction over and over again. The beam of light, the ship splitting apart, the silence that followed. His hands were shaking. A knock came at his door. His chief advisor, Lord Karath, entered with a worried expression. "Your Majesty, the Council of 12 has gathered. They demand to speak with you." "What do they want?" "Half of them want to launch a full military attack against the human fleet. The other half want to surrender immediately. They are screaming at each other as we speak." Malixar laughed bitterly. "A full attack? With what? Our best ship was destroyed like a toy. Our most powerful weapons did nothing. What do they think will happen if we send more ships?" The military faction believes the humans only have one vessel. They think if we overwhelm it with numbers, they are wrong. Lord Karath blinked. "Your Majesty, I received a report from our long-range sensors this morning. The humans have been allowing us to see only what they want us to see. Their ship in our space is not alone." It showed a region of space beyond the Shroud Wall Nebula. This is what our probes detected before they were destroyed. The image showed thousands of ships. Thousands of vessels the size of the Remembrance or larger. An entire fleet hidden behind the nebula, waiting. Lord Karath went pale. That is impossible. Where did they get the resources, the technology? They were slaves in mining colonies just 50 years ago. Apparently, they learned quickly. They had 3 centuries of anger to motivate them. A new alert flashed on the Emperor's console. Reports were coming in from across the Empire. The truth about the harvest was spreading. Someone had leaked the classified files. Citizens were learning what their government had done to the humans 300 years ago. Rebellions were starting on a dozen worlds, not from humans, but from other species. The Keth, the Morvani, the Silicates. All of them had been conquered by the Empire long ago. All of them had suspected that the Veilthuri were capable of great cruelty. Now they had proof. "Your Majesty, the situation is deteriorating rapidly," Lord Karath said. "We must do something. What would you suggest?" Perhaps we could negotiate. Give the humans some of what they want. Buy time to develop better weapons." Malixar shook his head. "They would see through that instantly. They have been watching us for decades. They know how we think." The door to the chamber burst open. Princess Valara rushed in, her robes flowing behind her. She was the Emperor's only daughter, young and idealistic in ways that often annoyed him. "Father, I have a proposal," she said. "This is not the time, Valara." "This is exactly the time. You are considering only 2 options, war or surrender. But there is a third option." The Emperor looked at his daughter with tired eyes. And what is that? Understanding. Communication. Finding out what the humans really want, not what we assume they want. They want revenge. It is obvious. Is it? Their message demanded acknowledgement and reparations. They did not demand our destruction. They could have destroyed the entire fleet in the hollow expanse, but they only fired one shot. Why? Malixar had not considered this. He had been so focused on the threat that he had not thought about why the humans were holding back. If they wanted simple revenge, we would already be dead, Valara continued. They have the power to destroy us, but instead they gave us 30 days. They want something more than death. I want to find out what. And how do you propose to do that? Let me go to them. Alone. One small ship, no weapons. I will ask to meet with their commander, and learn what their true intentions are. Lord Kareth gasped. Your Highness, that is suicide. They will kill you. Perhaps. Or perhaps they will talk to me. Either way, we will learn something. Valara looked at her father. What do we have to lose? If I die, you lose one daughter. If we go to war, you lose everything. The Emperor stared at his daughter for a long moment. She reminded him of her mother, who had died years ago. The same courage, the same stubborn belief that there was good in the universe. Very well, he said finally. Go, but take a communication beacon so we can track you. And Valara, be careful. The princess smiled and kissed her father's forehead. I will return with answers, I promise. She left within the hour. A small shuttle, barely larger than a transport vehicle, carrying the heir to the greatest empire in the galaxy toward an enemy fleet that could destroy worlds. The journey took 2 days. When Valara reached the coordinates where the remembrance waited, she transmitted a simple message. This is Princess Valara of the Veil Thori Empire. I come alone and unarmed. I wish to speak with Admiral Chen. For several hours, there was no response. Valara sat in her shuttle, watching the massive black ship float in the darkness, wondering if she had made a terrible mistake. Then her console lit up with an incoming transmission. Princess Valara, this is Admiral Chen. Your request is unexpected. What do you want? I want to understand. I want to know who you really are. I want to find a path that does not end in death for both our peoples. A long pause. Then Admiral Chen spoke again. You have courage, Princess. More than your father, it seems. Very well. You may dock with our ship. But understand this. If you betray us in any way, your shuttle will be destroyed before you can blink. I understand. A docking port opened on the side of the Remembrance. Valara guided her shuttle inside and felt the massive ship swallow her whole. When she stepped out onto the human vessel, she expected to find warriors and weapons. Instead, she found families, children playing in wide corridors, old people tending gardens that grew under artificial sunlight, men and women of all ages living their lives in a city that happened to float through space. A human officer met her at the airlock. Welcome aboard the Remembrance, Princess. Admiral Chen will see you soon, but first she wants you to see something. What? Valara asked. The officer smiled. It was the first real smile Valara had seen from a human. The truth. She was led through the ship to a massive observation deck. The wall in front of her was made of transparent material, showing the space outside. Valara looked out and felt her heart stop. The Shroud Wall Nebula had been transformed. Where there should have been deadly gravitational forces, there was now a thriving civilization. Stations, colonies, ships of every size moving between glowing structures, millions of lights in the darkness. And the humans were not alone. She saw Keth ships, Morvani vessels, silicate craft, all the species that had been conquered and oppressed by the Empire, now living side by side with humans. We call it the Reclaimed Territories, the officer said. Everyone here was once a slave, or a prisoner, or a forgotten person. The humans freed us. The humans welcomed us. The humans showed us that survival means nothing if you become a monster to achieve it. Valara felt tears forming in her eyes. This was not an army of revenge. This was a nation of survivors, and they were offering the Empire a choice. She just hoped her father was wise enough to make the right one. The 30th day arrived. Emperor Malixar IV stood on the balcony of his palace, looking up at the sky of Calixus Prime. The sun was setting, painting the clouds in shades of orange and purple. It was beautiful. It might be the last sunset he ever saw. Admiral Zorath Ven had gathered every ship the Empire could spare. 12,000 warships now orbited the throne world in defensive formation. It was the largest fleet ever assembled in Vaelthori history. It would not be enough. Princess Valara had returned 3 days ago with her report. She had spent 2 weeks living among the humans, learning their history, understanding their pain, and discovering their true intentions. What she told her father had changed everything. The humans did not want war. They did not want destruction. They did not even want revenge, though they had every right to demand it. They wanted something much simpler and much harder. They wanted their suffering acknowledged. They wanted the galaxy to know the truth about what the Empire had done. And they wanted a chance to build something new. A coalition of species based on equality instead of domination. A future where no one would be enslaved or forgotten again. The choice belonged to the Empire. Malixar had spent 3 days in prayer and meditation. He had read the histories of his ancestors. He had looked at the faces of the humans who had been taken from Earth and forced into lives of misery. He had seen what his bloodline had created. And he had made his decision. The sky above Calixus Prime began to change. The stars seemed to multiply. Points of light appeared where none had been before. Hundreds of points. Thousands. The reclaimed fleet had arrived. 3,000 ships emerged from fold space simultaneously. Each vessel was a mountain of black metal, glowing with power that the Empire could not comprehend. They formed a perfect sphere around the planet, not attacking, not threatening, simply present. Citizens looked up and screamed. Soldiers gripped their weapons with shaking hands. Panic spread through the streets like a wave. But Emperor Malixar IV remained calm. He walked to the broadcast chamber and activated the planetary communication network. His face appeared on every screen across the Empire. Billions of Vaelthori stopped what they were doing and watched their emperor. "My people," he began, his voice heavy with emotion, "I must tell you a story. It is not a pleasant story. It is a story of shame and cruelty and terrible mistakes. But it is a story you must hear." He told them everything. The harvest, the 2 million humans stolen from their home, the slavery, the lies, the cover-up that had lasted for 3 centuries. As he spoke, the truth spread across the galaxy. Species that had trusted the Empire learned what their rulers were capable of. Citizens who had believed in Vaelthori's superiority learned that their civilization was built on the suffering of others. "I cannot undo what my ancestors did," Malixar said. "I cannot bring back the dead or heal the wounds of the past. But I can do something that no emperor has ever done before." He paused and looked directly into the camera. "I am sorry. On behalf of the Vaelthori Empire, I apologize for the crimes we committed against humanity. We were wrong. We were cruel. And we have been cowards for hiding the truth for so long." He took a deep breath. "To Admiral Chen and the reclaimed fleet, I say this. We accept your terms. We will provide territory for human settlement. We will pay reparations to the descendants of those we wronged. And we will teach our children the true history, so that this never happens again. The broadcast ended. For a moment, the galaxy held its breath. Then Admiral Chen's voice filled the communication channels of every ship in the system. Emperor Malixar IV, your words are heard. Your apology is accepted. We do not forget what was done to us, but we choose not to be defined by hatred. We offer you something your ancestors never offered us, a chance to be equals. The weapons on the human ships powered down. The threatening sphere became something else, a protective embrace, an offer of partnership. On the surface of Calixus Prime, Admiral Chen's shuttle landed in the palace courtyard. The Emperor walked out to meet her, alone and unarmed. They stood facing each other, the descendant of conquerors and the descendant of slaves, two leaders carrying the weight of centuries on their shoulders. Chen extended her hand. It was a human gesture of peace and greeting. Malixar had learned about it from his daughter. He took her hand and shook it. This will not be easy, Chen said. Trust takes time to build. There will be those on both sides who want war, who cannot let go of the past. We will have to work hard to prove them wrong. I understand, Malixar replied, but I am willing to try if you are. We have been waiting 300 years for this moment. We can be patient a little longer. In the years that followed, the galaxy transformed. Human colonies were established on dozens of worlds. Veilthori scientists worked alongside human engineers to develop new technologies. The Keth, the Morvani, the Silicates, and 100 other species joined the new coalition. It was not perfect. There were conflicts and misunderstandings. Old hatreds flared up sometimes. Progress was slow and often painful. But it was progress. Princess Valara became the first Veilthori ambassador to the human territories. She spent her life building bridges between the two peoples. When she was old and gray, she wrote a book about her experiences. The final chapter contained a conversation she had with Admiral Chen's successor, a young human captain named David Chen, great-grandson of the woman who had changed the galaxy. How did your people forgive us? Valara asked him. After everything we did, how did you find it in your hearts to offer peace instead of destruction? David smiled and looked out at the stars. We did not survive to become what enslaved us, he said. We survived to become something better. Our ancestors suffered in your minds for generations. They could have passed that suffering down as hatred. Instead, they passed down a dream of a galaxy where no one has to suffer the way they did. He turned to face the old princess. Revenge is easy. Any species can destroy its enemies. But building something new, something that makes the universe better than you found it, that takes strength, that takes courage, that takes hope. He placed a hand on her shoulder. That is the human way. Across the galaxy, in academies and archives, a new chapter was added to the history books. It told the story of a small species that had been dismissed as primitive and worthless. A species that had been stolen, enslaved, and forgotten. A species that had risen from chains to become one of the most powerful civilizations in the universe. But the history books did not focus on the power. They focused on the mercy. They called it the human lesson, and the galaxy never forgot. When children asked their teachers what made humanity special, the answer was always the same. It was not their technology. It was not their ships. It was not their ability to survive in impossible conditions. It was their refusal to become monsters. It was their belief that the future could be better than the past. It was their understanding that true strength comes not from the power to destroy, but from the courage to forgive. The stars continued to shine. New generations were born. Old grudges faded into memory. And somewhere in the vastness of space, the descendants of Earth and the descendants of Calixus Prime worked together, building a civilization that would last for 10,000 years. The darkness of the past had finally given way to light. A new dawn had begun.